Greetings. Welcome to the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track discussion of The Magicians, Season 4. My apologies for being the disembodied voice from beyond this evening, but for some odd reason, my camera decided not to work. So I do promise that I am here, and all of my lovely people are also here, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves to you, beginning with you, Rocky.
Hi, I'm Rocky Shields from Southeast Missouri, and a huge fan of the show and of the Urban Fantasy Track at Dragon Con.
Yay, thank you. Kevin?
Hello, folks. Kevin Batchelder, the second in line, I guess you'd say, for the Urban Fantasy Track, assisting Carol here, and a longtime Dragon Con attendee and panelist, panel moderator, attending pro, volunteer. Can't get enough of it, so glad to be here talking magicians.
So you do it all, you're not, yeah. Okay, Margie?
Hi, Margaret Parsons. Go by Margie. I'm a volunteer with the American Sci-Fi Fantasy Media Track. Also a panelist and fan, and almost 20-year attendee, and an actor and a fan.
Okay. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna Puerta. I am also a volunteer on the Urban Fantasy Track. I direct the Buffy Horror Picture Show,
Woo!
and I have an MFA in film and television. Very happy to be
here.
Hey, I'm Marks. I'm a occasional filmmaker, author, podcaster, and I don't volunteer for nothing. No, I'm teasing.
We don't give you time to volunteer.
No, and I also have MFA. I have MFA in popular fiction and love urban fantasy ever since I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a youth, and of course enjoy the Magicians and excited to be invited.
Well, we're excited to have you. Thank you, and we have a return. Hello, Renita. We're glad you're back. We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. So let's begin. Now, we have a very significant, I guess you could say, season to discuss, considering things that happened, which we will talk about, probably at great length. But my first question has to do with mainly the characters in general, and was there one that you feel that changed or had the greatest personal growth this season? And I'm not sure we should count Elliot, but we could. And I will preface this by saying I had forgotten that he spent the whole season as the monster. That Hale had to be the monster for the whole season. Except for those brief interludes. But in any case, my question still stands: is that which one of the characters do you feel had the greatest personal growth? And Rocky, you get to go first.
For me, it was Margot, and it's kind of odd to say that because I feel like every season she's had a lot of growth. But and then secondary Josh, and I loved everything they did with them as a combination this season, especially the episode that focuses on Josh's curse. I just thought the character development between those two were some of my favorite of the entire season. But and then Margot's episode where she's in the desert was just probably my one of my favorite episodes of the whole season. Okay. So for me, Margot.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah, it's not even close in my mind. It's Margot to me. But since Rocky went there first, as far as the
well, you can elaborate.
Well, no, and I think we will throughout our discussions as we touch on different parts of the season. But yeah, it definitely, to me, this was the season where we went, in my mind, to very much an ensemble to Margot at the front, for sure. But that's, maybe that's no conversation.
That's an
But
interesting point.
yeah, I mean, but also worth mentioning too. I thought it was a very interesting season for Penny, um, in terms of where he was at, both multiple pennies. Really,
Both tenants, yeah.
yeah, really, I thought brought a lot to the story, in the two different parts that he was interacting in. So aside from Margot, I'll also give Penny a big shout out.
Okay. Margie.
For me, it's the monster. I have always loved the monster, and watching him go from the blank child slate and grow and become self-aware was just a master stroke of acting for me on Hale's part. And Hale's kind of had three characters this season. He had himself, he had Elliot, he had the monster, and then he had the Lizard King. And I just thought it was a great arc for an actor, but also Josh's arc is just wonderful.
Yeah. Anna.
I was also going to say Margot at first, but I'm going to pivot. Obviously, Josh turning into a fish. No,
yeah, yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah.
But
it's personal growth, but it's change, right?
It is change. It is change. I think there was also a lot with Julia, especially sort of towards the end there of like, do I want to be a god? Do I want to be a human? And kind of her kind of wrestling with what both of those things would mean for her throughout the season. And then, getting to the end when it's thrust upon her, the decision. Right. And she also has to deal with that and what that means. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of good moments of growth for Julia, and some of that was with Penny, Penny 23.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, I think everyone kind of had a good character moment this season.
Yeah, when you were talking about how she had to navigate that change, and how the fact that she was upset that the decision was taken out of her hands, and that scene between them when he's explaining, he's like, I understand why you're upset. I guess at that point she was pretty unconscious, and they had to decide then what they were going to do. But so I guess he made his best guess, but whatever. But what I thought was interesting was then, he apologized and he's getting ready to leave, and she asked him to stay so she could be mad at him for a while.
Yeah.
So, just stay here so we can, still hang out. But yeah. She was mad, but still wanted him around. Yeah. You what?
I said I can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Please just sit here and be annoying, or let me be annoyed at you. Yeah. All right, Marks, who have you got for us?
I was going to say Margot, but Rocky got there first. And then especially all that hard, glossy armor episode was awesome. Then I was going to say Penny, but then Kevin got there.
Pays to go first or second.
So obviously the binder. We went from book to person. I guess one thing, just to twist it around a little bit, is maybe like from that episode Side Effects, I think a lot of the sidekicks grew a lot. Zelda, Finn, Katie became like the hedge witch queen, basically. They all grew up quite a bit out of the blue. So that was pretty cool. That was a good episode too.
Yeah, I wrote down what Pete said to Katie when he said, could you die, or when she was going to let her or not go for the cure or whatever, because she was
die when it's
when people don't need you, could you wait until then? And I thought that was pretty good. I mean, he's always been kind of a smarmy guy, as we know, but he did have a good point there. So point one for Pete. So from this season, what were some of your favorite scenes or moments, whether it was between the characters themselves or something that happened visually within the show, or it could be some of both? And Kevin, you're going to go first this time.
Yeah, certainly one of those standouts. I think it's already been mentioned multiple times just in our first answer is the episode 10, all that hard, glossy armor. I mean, the whole Margot
Mm-hmm.
desert journey,
Mhm.
that storyline, the musical stuff, the impact, what it means for her and all that's going on. That's certainly a big standout for me.
Okay. Margie, you got a favorite besides
Oh,
that?
so many. If I have to pick one, it's the one where Elliot confronts the moment to find his door, and it's one of my all-time favorite moments in the series when he looks at Q and said, "Yeah, we could have worked, and I was too scared."
Yeah.
You know, and that sums it up for a lot of the characters. They've and I think in this season, so many of them pushed through the scared to move forward because it's do or die for so many, and that's my ultimate favorite.
Okay. What's your second favorite?
When the monster and his sister are talking, and he asks what his name is, and she says, "Why do you even need a name?" And he said, "Well, for Starbucks mostly."
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, yeah, because she did point out to him that how human he had become, or
Mhm.
how much like a human he had become. Really, I think was more the terminology.
And then at the end, when he's talking to her, you see that again, how human he is when he's telling her about the silence in the world and how there are actually good things and good people there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Imagine him saying that, 12 episodes ago.
Very Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. Anna.
Are we saying favorite moment or favorite episode or both?
It could be either, or just
Okay.
were some of the things that for you really stood out in terms of,
Yeah.
either scenes, moments. The episode is fun. I mean,
Yeah. I have a couple. I think the timeline and place
yeah.
when they travel to the different reality and we kind of see the alternate timelines. I don't know that any time when we're like looking at like parallel universes and stuff like that, I'm like fascinated. So I think I'm just like naturally just like, oh, this is so interesting. Let me dissect every single decision that was ever made that led them to be in this situation instead of the other one. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and it also put Penny 23 kind of at the forefront where we got to know him a little bit more. And he wasn't feeling as much of an imposter.
Right. And he had to make his own decisions rather than having other people tell him, well, will you go do this or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah. He was kind of just like, well, I'm going to be, around. So up until then. And then after that, it felt like he kind of was like, no, I'm here.
Right.
And then I think the moments between Zelda and Harriet and Zelda deciding to go against the library, I really enjoyed that that storyline. And obviously all that hard glossy armor was probably my favorite episode of the bunch, but there's a lot of good moments throughout.
Yeah.
I also having Christopher Plummer come back in the poison room and then be like, well, you need me, and everyone being like, yeah, you're a pedophile.
Yeah, we don't need you.
We really don't. Like but yeah.
And the question which anybody tell me, but
Mhm.
after he, excuse me, after the moment where he signed the book for Q and gave it to him, the one that Katie put in the fire later, right at the end. Did we never heard anything about him again, right? Not this season. He wasn't there in their, final things, but it wasn't just me missing something, right? That was like the last scene with him in this season, correct? Anybody remember
I think
him?
so.
I think so.
Yeah. Think
Yeah.
so.
He disappeared.
Okay.
They kind of like dismissed him.
Yeah. And yeah, as we probably all wanted to anyway. But, okay, Marks.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of really great moments in here. I'm trying to think of moments. Well, definitely favorite episode is all that hard glossy armor, not just because the music, but also just that whole plot line with Margot. I really thought was really interesting. I love everything that with fillery anyway. I think that's stuff you don't usually see on live action TV. And there was just a really interesting storyline with the men trying to control women, and you had the females, demons or spirits trying to help them, but it was all twisted around. And people were tricked, and the actor who with the that pickaxes was he's great on Ghosts as Thorfinn. So
Yeah.
very different role. Yeah, that whole thing came together really well, and just seeing different. Everybody's seen it and stuff. So we got a lot of singing, a few more singing times this season. I think otherwise, I think I mentioned Side Effect. I thought that was cool. It was also a way to chime in on Penny 23 and see how he's adjusting. And then they give you that tease that's very important for the finale of the series, a few episodes early. So that's cool. Otherwise, lots of really funny moments, like in Bad News Bear, episode 3, whenever he's holding on that bear and all the bad luck was happening. Like, where'd it come out of? The toilet? What?
Yeah,
all sorts of craziness.
Yeah.
And Penny and Katie and those disguises and stuff, and then that one bad guy librarian comes out and he's like, oh my my contact lenses and stuff. It's just lots of great stuff there. Lots of stuff reminded me of their bank heist episode, right? Another little heist.
Right. Yeah, because it's like, okay, we know who they are, but you're thinking how it's kind of like, Superman putting on a suit and and a pair of glasses and being Clark Kent, and nobody picks up on it. It's like, okay. Yeah, that whole scene was well done, I think, because you didn't know exactly how if it was good, if they were going to make it to the end. They did a good job of the suspense of it, just saying, okay, well, because there were a couple of times they could have gotten caught and they didn't. So, yay, that.
And you had a magic card game. That's, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Rocky, what about you?
My favorite scene is definitely the Elliot and his door. But one of my favorite, funniest scene is Dean Fogg telling everybody where his liquor's at.
Yeah.
And then he's coming back and he's like, you tell everybody, and they do it and it's all gone. But luckily he's got the one underneath the cabinet. And then Todd, that episode, not being able to keep the secret and telling the first person that he runs into.
Yeah, and he's like, in the episode where Dean Fogg gives him the book to get, he's like, don't Todd this up. And he's like, is that really a thing you say now? And he's like, yes.
Yeah. And Margot's scene with the queen or the lord, and then she just comes back and Josh is like telling her to be civil, and she's just like, nope, I'm doing it my way. I thought was perfect Margot. And then my other one was when Penny 40 and Penny 23 meet, and Penny 40 tells them, hey, no, you have to go back. I thought then him acting against himself was really well done.
Yeah, they did handle that. And it's interesting, I think, from a viewer's perspective, seeing that happen too, just trying to keep the two straight, thinking, okay, well, they really are very much alike, and yet they're not at all alike. So.
And then my last one would be when Alice like is telling Quentin that, hey, you know, I sent him to a bad world. He asked for, you know, a good world, and I said, does that make me a bad person? I thought that scene was very well done between them two.
Yeah. Well, you made a good transition for us, a nice segue into my next question, which is about Dean Fogg. And I really like his character. And I always have. I did even before I got to meet the man and do a panel with him at Con about his different characters, not just about Dean Fogg, but he played the head vampire on Supernatural over a few different episodes, and so we talked about some of his roles like that. But in any case, my question is that even if he's not really considered main cast necessarily, I think he's pretty, important to the narrative. I think that he has, and I think that was somewhat evidenced by his participation in and appearance at the memorial in the last episode. But what I wanted to get your thoughts about him, do you consider him to be integral to the whole thing, or do you think he was just kind of a fun side character? And Margie, you get to go first this time.
Oh, I think he is a catalyst. Every time we see him, he kicks it up into high gear and either gives them a direction or gives them backstory that they don't have. But it was fun in this season to get to see some of his backstory with his tailor, who talks about how his suits are his armor, and how she saw right through him, and he's one of her favorite people. And I also like that we have benevolent Fogg, we have drunkard Fogg, we have devil may care Fogg, and we got Dad Fogg this time. It was kind of fun to have that little sideline of he's Marina's father, and that that we're in the timeline where you owe me child support.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
And so no, I think you can't do this without him. I think he is the glue that they keep coming back to, and their touchstone.
Okay. Anna.
Yeah, I think he's integral to the whole everything. I don't know if I'd say he's the glue, but I do think that he's a touch point, where, or a constant in the way that Breakbills was in the early season. He kind of becomes that. We may not see Breakbills, but we're gonna see the Dean. So yeah, I think he is pretty pivotal.
Okay. Marks.
I think it's pretty important. He's the face of Breakbills, the connection that keeps every time they want to get resources and Breakbills or help, he always comes into play. I think this season was really good for him because he was trying to make up for his mistake, and he was way more involved in helping him out this time around. Not just a little bit of help, but more actively involved. The whole thing with him in his suit and getting into the library and doing a little secret agent magic work almost. I thought that was really, really good scene for him. Good hero moment for him, and help solidify him, be more of an ally, not just a resource / sometimes antagonist. Goes back and forth, never know exactly. This time he was a lot more transparent and trying to help, especially last half of the season. Kind of like Zelda a little bit too.
Yeah,
go
ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Yeah, Zelda grew into a character I thought was just like a one-time thing, and it's really become a significant character. He went from blind, from normal to blind, fog. He's had a lot of arcs this 4 seasons.
Yes, he has. And he started calling the group my students. He started referring to them. This season, he referred to them that way. And I thought that was a kind of an important turning point as well. Rocky.
I think Rick Worthy is such a great actor that, he can go from comedy to serious. And we talked in like season 3 how the writers were kind of figuring out very well who the characters are and writing better for them. And I just feel like that's the same with Dean Fogg. Like this season, I mean, like I said in my comments on the last question about his humor, but as other people pointed out, they write him in just at the right moment that you need support or for the characters. And I feel like he always delivered, but this season more than any other, he really stepped up. And like Mark said, in the second half, he was pretty important to the plot. But so, yeah, I think he's pretty integral to the story, especially this season.
Okay. Kevin.
Before I answer, a quick question for my fellow panelists. 5 seasons, the show ran 5 seasons, 13 episode seasons, like 65 episodes. How many episodes do you think he was in?
30. I'd say half.
How many Fogg was in?
Yeah.
I'd say half.
It's maybe a quarter of them, maybe.
I have not checked.
I haven't either, believe it or not. I may
No,
have
it's not
way
mine.
back when, but I haven't recently.
So I'll say
Well,
30.
the reason I ask is I did look it up. One of the benefits of going last when you have a good question, Carol, a little time to prep. He was in 41 episodes. So essentially 2/3 of the episodes he's in. So while his time on screen may not be as much as, shall we say, our leads, as you've all pointed out in your answers, he does play a very important part. But I think the thing that's interesting for me, not just for the characters, but I think for us as an audience, when we're watching a show like this that has got some crazy things going on, and dealing in a supernatural world, sometimes we just need someone to kind of ground things, if you will. Recap for the audience or for the cast members, hey, this is what you got to do, or this is what I don't care about, or here's a little loophole to make it happen. So I find him just very comforting when I see that he's on screen. He could be, like we said, the drunk, or he could be just an amazingly knowledgeable person who can help with it. And it's just very comforting to have him there. So I definitely think that's why, for me, he's an integral part of things.
Yeah, and sometimes he could be drunk and comforting. So yeah, or drunk and knowledgeable.
I'm trying to think. He's one of the only characters that, through all the timelines, remembers everything. Correct?
He is. Once we lose Jane, he is the only one.
Yeah,
That I was going to say that he's the only one that remembers each and every timeline.
Yeah. Well,
And it's funny too. I don't know, for those who are aware or enjoy documentaries, he was in a documentary called That Guy Who Was in That Thing, which is a great documentary. There's also one for actresses about folks who are just character actors, guest stars on shows. They never got a big break, but they're very well known, certainly by their face or whatever. And just so but that was done way back in like 2011. So this is like 5 years before.
Yeah, the actor
even
that plays Everett. I've seen him in so many things and can't remember his name, but he's usually like a bad guy.
yeah.
It's great hearing a little bit about his beginnings and just, like a lot of struggling actors, not hitting it big, living paycheck to paycheck, but still being, the very engaging guy, as you mentioned, Carol, that you got a chance to do a panel with and such. So I just mentioned, if you're a fan of his,
Let's check it out.
streaming on one of the services, I don't know which one, but it's an interesting documentary.
That guy in that thing, is that guy who was?
That Guy who was in that thing.
Okay, I'll have to check that out because that does sound interesting. And just a very quick side note that for those of you, which I know at least some of you on this panel are also Supernatural fans, as are some of our viewers, I'm sure, that there is a woman who was doing who was writing a book of essays or gather like editing a book of essays about Supernatural. And they always ask, there are several of those out there, and they always ask for some commentary or statements or something, from some cast members. And when it was time for his piece, he was asked if he would be interested in doing it. And he said, "Oh, yes." And then he said, "But I've got to ask, he said, I really am not a great typist. Is it okay if I just dictate mine?" And the woman was like, "Oh, that's just fine." Because he's got that great voice. That's like when Q hears him when he's Brian and he's like, "James Earl Jones." That episode, when before they remember who they are, that was funny. Why is James Earl Jones calling you anyway? But yes, a very engaging guy who does have a great voice. Let's just face it, that's true. All right, so this season we had multiple villains and or bad guys, if you want to call them that. We have the Order, who were kind of set up. They were kind of set up in that role before, but this year they really leaned into it. They didn't. It was no holds barred this time. And then we have the Monster and his sister. And so my question is, which of those two did you find most intriguing, or do you think they are too intertwined to be able to separate in terms of which one you thought was the most interesting for you anyway? And I believe it's Anna's turn to go first.
It's got to be the Monster. I think it's probably, besides the Beast, I think it's my favorite villain of the show. And I just think Hale does such a good job, like Margie was saying, the beginning of really taking on who he is and dealing with not having his memories and all of the various things. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Marks.
Yeah, I think probably the Monster too. I mean, there was some good stuff with the library. I think some of it was just so because they were trying to keep it hidden. It just kind of came out. I mean, you knew some bad stuff was going on, but it kind of mostly came up near the end when you knew more details. But I found the Monster, both how the actor portrayed him really, really interesting, but also I think like the origin story, any of this, how they play around with mythology and the gods is really interesting. Mm-hmm. That fact that those gods weren't even gods at first; they were librarians that cheated to become gods. So that was a really cool twist, I thought. Right. And it gave us the binder. Mark said he liked the binder quite a bit. Yeah. As he passed it on to Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. And Matt Frewer was so perfect in that role.
He perfect everything.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, Rocky, the baton has been passed to you.
2 scenes made it the Monster for me. One of them is with the airplanes, and he's just throwing the airplanes and crushing them. And that whole scene with him and Quentin, I thought the acting was just excellent. And then the other one is also with Quentin, where he's choking him, and Quentin's like just defiant, like, go ahead, do it. And I just the look on is it Habe? Is that the actor's name?
Hale.
Yeah. But just his facial expressions while he's choking Quentin. But and then of course with Bacchus, Bacchus is playing with him, and he just has like no remorse. I just thought pretty much Elliot or Hale's acting for this season as the monster is what made it such a good character.
Okay. Kevin?
Well, it's interesting hearing everybody talk, because for me, I wasn't a big fan of Elliot as the monster this season. It just, I don't know, didn't quite land or hit for me, not from a lack of good performance or whatever, but maybe because I don't like when one of my main characters in a show.
When good guys go bad?
Yeah, kind of, or it's kind of like at the beginning of the season when we had everybody with a different persona and all after what happened. That concept is interesting for a couple episodes, but an entire season, every time I'm seeing, air quotes, the monster, I'm like, okay, when are we getting Elliot back?
Right.
Selfishly. So, and the order, I mean, that's such a detached thing, and just in terms of the way that it's, it's done, it's multiple people and all. It's hard to like attach to a villain when it's not just one mustache twirling person or something, So I had a real challenge this season as far as seeing that, shall we say, the villain side of it, other than just the library as the entity and, controlling things. So for me, this was kind of I don't know, not really a fan of any of that as the villain this year myself.
Okay. That's fair. And Margie?
Again, I have a great love of the monster, both as the villain and as the innocent abroad. But I think the library and the order are the bigger bad. The monster and his sister have a grievance, and they have a real grievance. They don't have enough awareness to understand why what they're doing is wrong, because for them it makes sense that they must destroy that which tried to destroy them. But the library is devious and hidden and has been. It has been a through line from early on, and I still carry a grudge from them tricking Penny, and will continue even though Penny comes to a different place with the library, and you get to see some of the layers. You get to see the Knight from the Crusades, who is his supervisor. That episode bothered me, and it was just a little bit too cute. But it allowed Penny a growth that and allowed us to see the library as what it ought to be instead of how it's functioning.
Yeah. What it had become. Yeah. Because when you think about what they could be as opposed to what they are, it's pretty sad. And I say this as a former librarian, but I never worked in the Netherlands, although there are some places I've worked that you can probably classify that way. But in any case, I digress. But I just thought it was such an interesting dichotomy, the two sides of it, that the one, as you said, was devious, whereas with the monster was very in your face. Renita has it's Kako is back. Even on a library level, the corruption and academia of it all is so painfully real. Yeah. Well, hopefully we don't have to exist in the as I said, in the Netherlands, though. All right, so now we'll get to some of the sad stuff.
What? I thought, isn't this the end? Good night, all.
You're gone, huh? That's it. Let's talk about Quentin and how he met his end. I want to know, and this will be separate from our discussion of the finale in and of itself, because there were other things going on in the finale also, not just that, even though that was the big thing. How did you feel about the way the character met his end? And I'm sure that for the rest of you, now, as I think I've mentioned before, I watched the whole series back when it aired. I've seen some episodes since then, but not a whole full rewatch. So it was, at the time, there was some foreshadowing of things that people said, and that I didn't necessarily pick up on then, or if I did, I don't remember, because this was like, what, 6 or 7 years ago at this point. But but at this time I could pick it up because I know what's going to happen. But I just want to get your reactions to, how did you feel about the way that he met his end? Do you think it fit the story? Do you think it was what was your personal feeling about it too when it happened? How did it hit you emotionally? And Marks, it's your turn to go first.
Yeah, I think you see some foreshadowing thinking about it, like with he makes up stuff, or he makes up with Alice. His father passes away and he deals with that grief. They wrap up a lot of his threads, and he finds out what he's good at, and it's mending, which is perfect for how he saves the world basically. It still feels like it came out of almost nowhere, if when you first watch it.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna kill a lead character off, they did a pretty good job. The funeral at the end was very touching. The singing and everything was touching. They did. I think we talked before, like how Quentin would normally be like the main character, like almost like a Buffy of the Scooby Gang, right?
Right.
But the last couple seasons, yeah, they've done a good job making it everybody's story and stuff. So that makes it a lot easier to transition without him. I don't know if the actor wanted to leave or not. I don't remember any of that stuff. But it's always a big challenge when you lose one of the main characters and then continue to move the series forward. It's a very bold move. So, and they did tease it with the elevator, and I didn't love it, but then when it happened the first time, but then rewatching it and then seeing his interaction with Penny 40 and the funeral and everything makes it really touching and really a good way for a character to pass away. Every guy lose a main character. It's a lot better than sometimes shows will do this thing where life is chaos, people just die at random and they do a random death. They're like, whoops, oh well, they died off screen or something. That would not have been great at all.
No,
So at least this was a heroic death. So, and very well done with the slow-mo with Everett and the mirror and everything. And so yeah, I'm very interested to hear what everybody else thinks about it though.
Okay, well, Rocky, you tell us what you think.
I'm still upset about it even at the second rewatch, and I was very upset at the time. But with the internet age, you can read, and it's like, oh, the actor asked to be let out of his contract, and they obliged. So I feel like they did the best they could with the situation. With you're filming the season, and the actor comes and says, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore." And so I thought, like you said, foreshadowing and everything. So I felt like they did an excellent job with what they had time to do to write the character out and give him a heroic death. And like Mark said, him and Penny, I thought was a nice touch there at the end. But I still think that Quentin, even though sometimes he can be moody, and somebody else said that Dean Fogg wasn't the glue, but I kind of feel like Quentin sometimes is the glue of the show. So, but even though you may not always like him necessarily.
Well, and yeah, when it came down to it, when you say he was the glue, he was really the reason that they did some of what they did.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
he'd push him forward, and But that, and like I said, the scene between any scene with him and Elliot, still my favorite episode's the one where they go in the past and spend all that time. And then my favorite scene of the season's when Elliot realizes that he made the mistake and he should have said yes to Quentin. So to me, some of my favorite scenes in the entire series are with the actor that plays Quentin and Elliot. So I just felt the loss when he did die,
Okay.
which is a good thing because
Yeah, you're supposed to.
that's
Yeah,
his- yeah.
If we all sat there and said, don't let the
Yeah.
world be on your way
Yeah.
out, then that'd be too bad, right? So that would be sad. Kevin, what's your take?
Well, and we all know this. I mean, a lot went into where Quentin was at this point in the story. Starting out kind of in the front in the early parts of the series. And we've seen it in so many other shows. Those of us who are big fans of genre television shows, certainly. Someone who believes in something that no one else does. So naturally they're seen to have mental health issues or be crazy or not all there, So, there was some redemption for him once, magic is real and so forth. But as we saw, I mean, Quentin was always having a difficult time in almost everything. And as a fan watching that, it can be difficult. You want to see them succeed. Many of us, I will certainly put myself in that category, were a bit of the outsiders when we were younger. So you can always appreciate seeing someone as they're growing up, kind of realize they do have some skills at something and they can be useful. So him getting the character getting an opportunity to do something to help not only his close friends, but, the world, so to speak, making that choice to make a sacrifice. Let's face it, a lot of other very important characters don't get to make the choice when they're killed off for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and that's, that impacts for a lot of us, whether a death feels earned or not, whether or not we may not like it, but we can understand, and all those facts. So I had a lot of thoughts going around on this. I think for me, for a show that dealt with depression and mental health and so forth, making a choice to sacrifice yourself is difficult to take and to see happen. But at least it seemed aligned with what he would do and, what his skill was, right down to the basics of mending things. And also I had a lot. I won't say that I was upset by it. As a fan of the show, I certainly thought it felt natural to the show and the story and where it was going. Sometimes deaths just seem, like you said, random or out of nowhere or just don't seem to fit. So, I felt bad, which was a good thing, but I wasn't like upset like a lot of people were, or maybe like Rocky mentioned he was. It's just, I always felt something was going to happen bad to Quentin. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I just sensed something. So at least he could spin it in a good way.
Okay. Yeah, and he, in that scene, and when he's in the underworld with Penny, and he even asked the question, "Did I do this to save them, or did I do it? Did I finally find a way to kill myself?" And that was, so they did address that as being something that would be a concern that people might have, which I thought was also interesting.
Yeah, but I and not to go too deep on that, but I would have preferred if he made that choice knowing it was going to be to help them rather than wondering if he instead chose to end his own life. And if he wasn't sure, what does that say about him? That's
Right.
what so I had a little concern with that. I mean, I got it. It's part of that whole making you feel better about a character you've lost and hopefully seeing him, going off.
So you're saying what you mean then is that the fact that he asked the question, you thought was a little bit distressing, that they addressed it in that way.
Yeah, for me anyway.
Okay.
Um,
I get that too. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I would have felt better if he just saw the situation, made
for
an in
what
the
it was.
moment choice rather than one. But then again, him asking that question is also so Quentin
Yeah,
for how he's
exactly.
been
Yeah,
for years. So
exactly.
I didn't fault it as much as, you know,
What
but
made you uncomfortable, and that's
yeah,
all.
that's
That's
all.
all good as well. So it means you cared.
Yep.
Margie, what was your take?
Well, I do agree that it was so very Quentin to ask the question, to make the action, and then second guess himself and wonder what was my motivation as pure as I thought it was in the moment. Because I think in the moment you see the decision, you
Right.
see him make eye contact with Penny, and you see that he's decided on a course of action. But it was so fascinating to me at the time. I wasn't ready for it at all. They had locked this one down so tight, and even the rest of the cast did not know until the day of the
Oh, yes.
finale that when they filmed the fire scene, they didn't know that there wasn't some magic way he was coming back. So there's a really interesting interview with him with it's like, and after I hang up with you, I have to go make some phone calls and make amends, because it had not been discussed with the other cast members. So
Oh,
Jason and Arjun and the showrunners were the people that knew where this was going after it wrapped. And it was one of the other really interesting things that I read about at the time was how both they were so restless, that the character was restless, the actor was restless, and it just seemed like a natural time to move him on. Because Quentin just would go from low to lower,
and then to okay, and then
and
back
then
to yeah.
a bright spot, but then he'd go back, and he just was kind of, even though he was nominally the main character around which the premise revolves, he wasn't the one that was growing.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, well, I think in the beginning that we definitely did get that impression that he was, that he was the main character, but he's in like not the very first scene. That's Dean Fogg, but then he's the first of the students anyway, the first of the Breakbills people. Anna, what's your take on the whole thing?
I don't know. What I say today may not be how I feel tomorrow. So
Okay, well, that's fine. How do you feel today?
I think they did a good job of letting him go. I think they dealt with it well, and there was, going back and watching it, you see some of the foreshadowing, and there was a lot of really good Quentin moments. The flower blooming scene was one of my favorites, and I think it really, the lead up to his death was a really good send off. But yeah, and this is I've rewatched the show a couple times, but I usually did it as a way to like start the next season. So I haven't rewatched season 5. I don't think so. So I'm actually kind of interested to see how I feel going into this season, because I haven't started it yet. I just finished last night. And so I don't know. The Quentin-less magicians may change my mind. I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, and how you felt about it, 5 or 6 years ago is not necessarily the.
Yeah, I think I was mad. I think I was more upset when it happened. So
Well, I remember being pretty shocked, and I can't remember if it was this season or if it was the very end, but I think it was this season that I did not see the finale until maybe a week after it had aired. I mean, I had it because back in the day, I've got a DVR, still have it actually. I had it recorded, but there were a bunch of things going on. It was near the end of the school year. I didn't get to see it, at the time. And somehow, and I remember you, Anna, specifically telling me, I don't know how you avoided the spoilers. I said, I don't know either, but I somehow managed to avoid it. That would have been probably pretty impossible at this point. And Renita had this comment that not knowing that the rest of the cast didn't know about his impending death, or that it was going to be final anyway. They didn't know that. And yeah, it was a big surprise.
Well, then someone who read the books, it was like, oh, they killed this character off that made it to the end in the books. It's like, okay, definitely.
Well, that was something I was wondering, because I've read maybe half of the first one before I got sidetracked into something else. But it was after the show was over, though. I did not read it before or during, because that's like courting disaster.
Completely different beasts than the show. Yeah. I mean, the show went on on its own way. So,
but yeah, it was, and I know that, what I was talking about with the foreshadowing, that every time there was a comment when people would make a remark about sacrificing yourself for others, even in a couple episodes before the end, when Julia said something to Q, that she said, well, if I decide to go down this one path, I'm going to need you to remind me of what it's like to care about other people, and also what it's like to sacrifice yourself for them. And I was thinking, oh my God. And I didn't, at the time, it's like, oh, I should have known. Let's see. And here isn't the end in the book also roughly season 3? Yeah, I do not know, just simply because I haven't read them. But I don't know about, and has anybody besides Rocky read the books at all? You
just
did?
one.
I read the first one, but it's very different. I mean, I remember even just when I started it, I was like, this is very, very different.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I first started reading it, and I thought, no, you can see where the spark of the idea came from, from that the books were the source material, but it seemed as though, at least as far as I read, that was kind of it provided a spark, and that was about it. But all right, so now, because we always have to talk about the finale, in addition to this big, huge death that I don't think anybody was expecting. I know I wasn't expecting it at the time, and most of you have indicated that you were not either, even though on some level it may have made sense. But what other aspects of the finale did you like? Did you feel as though it was a good finale? Did it seem to give some closure to things? Of course, we've got, the state. We're given an update, or Quentin's given an update from Penny before he leaves on the underground, or on the metro, I should say. He's given an update as to what's going on with the other characters. So we have all of that we know is coming. But how did it work for you as a finale in these other respects? And Rocky, I guess we're back to you.
It was probably my least favorite of the 4 finales. I do like everything with Julia and Penny, like her choosing to be human, and like I said, what they did with Quentin and Penny at the end, I thought worked well. But seasons 3 with the monster and Elliot as the monster finding Quentin or whoever his persona was, I thought was a much better ending than what we had with season 4. There was just a lot to tie up, like with season 4, because I thought the pacing was a little off for the whole season. There was like individual moments and individual episodes that I loved, but I felt like the pacing was a little off in the entire season, and they had a lot to do in the finale to make up for that slow pacing throughout the whole year.
Okay. Kevin, your reaction.
Well, I mean, the final 2 scenes, basically, Quentin's sacrifice and then the fire scene. I mean, just so, in my mind, just outweigh everything else so much.
Right.
I don't have much to say about the other stuff, things to tie up and things to bring in, because this is season 4 of a show. You've got a lot going on, and the characters have gone through a lot. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a huge fan of the monster for this season. So just in general, it might be my least favorite of the 4 seasons so far. Not, that it's bad, just least favorite is how I would phrase it myself. So, and it's interesting, I'm trying to think, as we were talking a little earlier, back to when I watched it the first time, because, as we all know, it's so different doing a rewatch when you know this is coming.
Yeah.
And when you didn't the first time around. And again, the last couple of scenes just so much outweighed everything else. In and of itself, it was fine. I was glad that I felt the emotional hit at the very end with the scene.
Yeah, that memorial was great.
Yeah, memorial, and Penny giving Quentin the final steps and sending him on the journey was just nice. It gave it a nice, okay, take a breath and we can move on to the next season feel. So in that sense, I certainly appreciate it. I can't say I enjoyed it because of what happened, but I appreciated it.
Right.
And the show continues to be able to do all these crazy things with some very interesting characters. So,
Okay.
That's a whole lot of nothing, but it's where my head and heart went at that point.
Well, and but I get what you're saying. It's hard to even try to focus on any of the other things that happened after, or to think about it as a whole, when that was supposed to be the biggest thing that happened, and it obviously was.
Mm-hmm.
So, Margie, what are your thoughts?
I actually liked it as a finale. To me, it wasn't as frantic as last season, as the season 3 finale. They tied up a lot of things, but it made sense, and it was, to me, it was very linear instead of jumping around, and I didn't get lost in the process. And it just, to me, it just seemed to flow, and I liked that they brought the binder back to
yeah,
that it was a jam-packed episode, but it wasn't, okay, we've got to get 3 seconds of this guy and 10 seconds of this guy to get everybody in. Their stories flowed together in a way that I don't think we got in the season 3 finale. So for me, even though it was shocking, it just all made sense to me. And I felt like I was watching something fairly authentic.
Okay. Anna?
I liked it.
Here's the minimalist answer.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I'm probably just tired at this point. It was a long day, but Yeah, it was. I enjoyed the finale. I think I'm probably more in the. I was just looking up like what happened at the beginning of the finale because I, even just having watched it, I can only think about the very last two scenes. But yeah, I mean, it was a good episode. I think a lot of the lead up to the finale was more interesting. Like everybody kind of in that final push before they get to the fight. It was kind of, I don't know, more interesting to me than the actual fight itself. Like that part was kind of eh. And then it was really the emotional hit after that that made the biggest impact.
Right. Well, that makes sense because it does make the rest of it kind of feel less in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
For one thing, and it's like when you're hearing about what's happening to these other characters, and you're like, oh, so what? They just Quentin threw himself in a fire. Yeah, or threw himself in the same.
But letting the Hedges have their moment.
Yes.
And being so important to the success was really big for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was. I agree.
Yeah.
And who was it was it you, Rocky, that called Katie the hedge witch queen earlier?
Yeah.
No.
Somebody referred to her that way. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Marina's place.
Yeah, that's right. Well, she's definitely an improvement. But was anybody else glad to see Marina back?
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked. I mean, the character was that. I mean, the actress is great. The character is not somebody I would want to know personally, but she was a lot of fun to watch because you never knew what she was going to do. And to bring back the alternate timeline version of her, I thought was a good move on their part because she was very much like her, but yet she wasn't. I mean, personality wise, she had a lot of the same characteristics, but, didn't do quite the same things.
Yeah, like Mark said at the beginning of, they gave the secondary characters a lot to do this year, and they all excelled at what they were given.
Right, and then they had that episode about the side effect, the people we look at as being side characters sometimes, but to let them have their moment and shine definitely is a good move. All right, Marks, it's up to you. Bring us home. What did you think about the finale?
Yeah, I liked it overall. I think I share a similar opinion like Kevin did. This wasn't my favorite of the seasons so far. I feel like it's paced just fine compared to last season, but I don't feel like there's as tight of a spine in it. Like last season, I felt like there was a strong spine with the quest, and the first two seasons, of course, had a strong spine with their strong spine with the big bad with Renard and the Beast. This one was a little bit kind of like more soap opera in a way because it was just all like different factions and different things moving around and stuff going on. It took a while to figure out where it was heading. It was all heading somewhere, and it headed to a really good finale. But it took a while to get there. Like Everett is really the big bad, but he got introduced really late in the game. Jewel State, who's awesome, never did anything. Some crack a few jokes, which is weird.
Yeah. Speaking of, we had Santa. How cool is that?
Yeah, I know. I wanted to see Santa come in and go, here, I'll help you out with this. Here's a gift. But the finale did a good job. Both of the emotional punch of Q's death and aftermath, but also it brought together all the story elements really well for them to win the fight with the weapons that Margot got and the knowledge she got, and then all the hedge witches that Katie was able to bring together. And they were able to do that cooperative magic with the hedge witches and Fillory and everything. So it was really good at bringing all the pieces together for the finale. And then it was nice to get a tease for what's going to happen after, or what we might see next. And in theory, they didn't actually, it's not like oops, we let out a monster. It's, stuff is going to happen next time. Let's see what happens. It's not completely our fault. So
Right. Well, as Dean Fogg said a couple seasons ago, you people are going to do what you're going to do. And that's, yeah, I brought that up recently in regard to something else, and that my husband and I were watching. It had nothing to do with that show, but characters were doing something similar, and that was his reaction. Or that was my reaction to what they were doing. But in any case, so Dean Fogg has, and I will say, I think that he has the best lines. And well, he and Margot probably get the best soundbite type lines, I guess. But some of his stuff is just great. So it's kind of it applies in all kinds of life scenarios, even when you're watching other things. So we are going to be hitting the final season next month, folks. So we'll have to get ready for that. I hope that you guys are enjoying it. I so much appreciate you doing this and taking time out of your schedules to go ahead and do this. And we appreciate everyone who's been watching. And it's been a lot of fun to talk about the show again. I'm glad that we did it, even though I originally planned to do it last year and we just didn't end up having time. I'm glad that we're doing it, and we will have to see how we all feel at when we watch the final season again.
This is this season coming up. Wow, I'm thinking ahead, going, oh, so much.
Yeah. I only have one other thing, Carol. My favorite show of all time is Quantum Leap. So the first few episodes, whenever they look in a mirror or like a car window mirror and they see they chose their other selves, I was like, every time I saw that, I would think of Quantum Leap. So
oh yeah. Yeah,
I really enjoyed how they did that.
Yeah, well, and they do like making the references to other pop culture, television and movies and stuff like that, and that's great. I mean, I'm glad that, given who the writers are in the show, is kind of to be expected, but I'm glad that they pull that off. But in any case, many thanks to all of you for being here. Many thanks to all of our viewers. Stay tuned for our date at the end of May for when our final discussion will be. We appreciate everybody who's been watching either with us or later on. And we appreciate both Renita and Rakaiko for coming in and talking with us as well. So many thanks, everyone, and we will say good night for now. So goodbye, all.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.